Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Frank Sinatra.
Hi there. Come on in and preview these pictures with me.
Producer, director, writer, painter, composer, actor, but most of all a singer. He's a one-of-a-kind American phenomenon.
Well, did you ever?
Nothing like him ever happened before or since. A man who partied as hard as he worked, and no one worked as hard, or had as many hits. He's a skinny kid from Hoboken who became the biggest swinger in the world. A most unlikely lover whose voice made women scream and men nod in appreciation. No entertainer even comes close to the effect he had. Not Caruso or Jolson or Rudy Valley or Crosby or the Beatles or Elvis Presley or Michael Jackson. It's a career that spans 7 decades, from the 30s to the 90s.
Wowee, wow, wowee, wow, wow, wow.
His ability to project loneliness and toughness, wistful sadness and heartfelt love is unmatched. He calls himself just a saloon singer, but there's a little more to it than that. There's feuds and loves and betrayal and fear and rejection and fury. He's rubbed elbows with kings and goons, gangsters and presidents. Few people wouldn't recognize his voice or his face or his name.
Of course, my name's Frank Sinatra.
Francis Albert Sinatra was born December 12, 1915 in Hoboken, New Jersey. It wasn't the worst place to grow up, but it was no picnic. Cold water tenements, street gangs, goons from the shipyards, and names like Dago and Wop and Kike and Nigger. It wasn't easy to be an outsider in the land of the free. His parents were immigrants, his dad from Sicily, his mom from Genoa. His mother, Dolly, was well loved in Hoboken, but she had a difficult delivery with Francis, and he was scarred by forceps when he was born. He carried the scars on his ear and neck all his life. The family would later say Frank weighed 13.5 pounds when he was born and had been losing weight ever since. As a teenager, Frank Sinatra discovered music and decided to emulate the groaner Bing Crosby, his idol, and years later a close friend. The advent of radio had made Crosby an international sensation.
Where the blue of the night meets the dawn of the day, I'm one they fall in.
His parents didn't like the idea of music as a career at first, but they came around.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, again we bring you new faces and new talent.
Major Beau's live version of his radio amateur hour was amateur in name only. Frankie Sinatra got a paying gig as one of the Hoboken Four, a trio that Major Beau's decided should be a quartet. Two of the trio hated and envied Sinatra. His untutored voice already was a draw to females. More than once, the older two boys beat the crap out of Sinatra out of envy. Sinatra never forgot loyalty or betrayal. Years later, when Sinatra was a big name, the two singers asked for a loan. Sinatra told them to go get lost. Stifled as part of a group, the teenager struck out on his own. He worked hard and practiced. Confident enough in his future, he proposed to Nancy Barbato. He called her his only escape from a grim world. But he warned her, I'm going places. I don't want anyone dragging on my neck. She told him, I won't get in your way, Frank. They were married in 1939, and Sinatra got a raise to a glorious $35 a week. Trumpeter Harry James spotted Sinatra and knew that the young man's way of talking a lyric was something special. Sinatra had picked up the emotional method of singing by emulating blues masters like Bessie Smith and Billie Holiday. The era of the big bands was in full swing, and Sinatra's mellow voice rode the crest like a velvet surfboard. Of course, not everyone was impressed.
Thank you, Frankie. Thank you. Thank you, Frankie. Thank you. Just lie down there any place. That was B2 Sinatra, folks. The only singer that has given Crosby any competition since Jenny Lind. The They must have nylons back there. But
the reaction from female fans was incredible. Body toxins, as critics disparagingly called them, teenagers who'd latched onto some sort of short-lived musical fad. That Sinatra's press agent staged some stunts, well, yes, some. But the emotional reaction was genuine. This young man had a way of caressing a song with his voice that made every woman feel like he was seen just to them. Theaters sold out. Hysterical mobs surrounded Sinatra in taxis, on street corners, at train stations. With national radio a relatively new phenomenon, Sinatra's voice became known everywhere. His angular face graced the music and fan magazines. He was offered up as a happily married man, and no doubt he loved his wife, Nancy. But the temptation of other women, a lot of other women, was always there. Pop psychologists tried to explain the phenomenon by suggesting something about the undernourished Italian kid prompting an urge to mother him. But feeding him was not what was on these girls' minds. Other big bands eclipsed the popularity of Harry James, and Sinatra joined forces with trombonist Tommy Dorsey. Dorsey loved to fight and hated giving in, as pugnacious as Frank Sinatra himself. But the singer observed Dorsey carefully, modifying his singing style. Dorsey had a way of sneaking a breath from the corner of his mouth to extend a long note. Sinatra learned to do this and breathed through his nose while singing to give himself more control. But Dorsey's ego couldn't stand a young soloist getting credit for the band's work. The birth of his first child, Nancy, in 1940, inspired the song Nancy with the Laughing Face, one of his early hits. But the idea that he was a nurturing husband and a father didn't stop the audience idolatry. Fans hunted theaters and hotels for hours for a glimpse of his blue eyes, an autograph, or maybe even a smile. His mother had always worked hard for the Democratic Party back in Hoboken, and young Sinatra was a staunch liberal, devoted to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. These were the years just after the Great Depression, and there was a feeling of optimism, of greatness ahead. But the worst was over, and now there was a whole world out there to conquer. Unfortunately, some people in Germany and Japan took that literally. World War II meant hundreds of thousands of men leaving wives and kids to fight for their country. Unlike later years and unpopular wars, this was a fight against hate and racism, things Sinatra had fought on a personal level since he was a kid. But he flunked his physical exam. A pierced eardrum received in a childhood brawl meant he was unqualified for service. Yet he received the ultimate honor. President Roosevelt himself asked him to the White House. Imagine that, Sinatra said later. A skinny kid from Hoboken talking to the most important guy in the world.
we are going to win this war, and we are going to win the peace that follows.
He cherished the friendship of the President and the First Lady all his life. He even managed to talk Eleanor Roosevelt into appearing on his TV show years later. No woman, no matter how great, was immune to the Sinatra charm.
It would be entertaining.
Just what you're doing now.
I don't quite understand you. You mean this is it?
Yep.
Oh, Mr. Sinatra, are you feeling well?
Yes, I'm weller than you might think.
But you can't call this entertainment.
Well, you call